This morning I'm talking to EUAN Semple. EUAN is an author, he's a blogger, he's a commentator really. He's a consultant working with companies all over the world. And I've known him for a long time. We worked together at the BBC for a number of years. So welcome to Learning Now TV, EUAN.
Thanks, Nigel.
And first question, you left the BBC maybe 11 years ago, something like that?
10 years ago this month.
10 years ago this month. What's happened in those intervening 10 years? At the time you were passionate about social media and you were greeting a blank canvas out there. No one really knew what you were going on about. Now everyone knows what you're going on about. So are you kind of irrelevant now, or is there still a world to conquer?
Well, it's interesting because I mean it wasn't a blank canvas in many respects, because there were lots of professional communicators and professional marketers and professionals of various sorts who, to my view, hijacked what I thought was interesting about social media and the web. And of course, you know, we got involved before it was even called social media. And it was about having really good, useful, productive conversations with people who otherwise would be difficult to get hold of. And that could be customers, it can be staff, it can be whatever. But a lot of it just turned up into another channel down which you push content at people. So the people stayed passive consumption and you know, we ended up where we ended up. So in terms of what's changed, I mean, that happened through the 10-year period. But what I'm seeing more and more is that companies who've maybe paid digital agencies to do social for them are sort of coming back and thinking, well, okay, that didn't work the way we expected it to. And they're more interested and getting a bit braver about genuine connections.
Give me some benefits. Why, if someone's sitting there saying, why should I bother? Why do I need to make all this effort when I've got a perfectly good marketing department pushing stuff out there to customers who seem to be engaged and liking a bit of what we do? Why do I need to get involved?
So there are many. I think one of the main drivers at the moment is that our current systems, our current ways of organising ourselves and dealing with challenges are just too slow. And you know, there are many big challenges like automation, blockchain, marginal capacity businesses like Airbnb and Uber that are having significant impact on the world of work and will increase in their impact on that world of work. And we're still operating like we were 20, 30 years ago in terms of bureaucracy, procedures. So people who will question the validity of or the value of using something like Twitter will quite happily spend their whole lives writing 40-page reports that nobody reads or sitting in meetings that never agree anything. Whereas a well-aimed, well-constructed tweet can change the world. So the challenge is that you've got two sides of this. You've got to give them the mindset and the why and the bigger picture capability angle on this. But at the same time, many people are still very intimidated by the very practical first step of putting your hands on a keyboard and saying what you think in public.
It's absolutely true. And the higher you are, the bigger the problem.
Well, indeed, and you know, a lot of the people I work with are increasingly senior, and you know, I totally empathise with the challenge of saying what you think in plain English and meaning it for many of them.
Because they're surrounded by internal comms people who are saying, no, we'll manage that for you. We'll write that for you. No, you don't have to do anything.
And yet online we can sense that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And back to authentic, that key word, isn't it?
And the very fact that out of 140 characters on Twitter, you know, people still find it funny that I reckon I can learn to trust people who I've never met through consistent behaviour online. And I find it fascinating, you know, having studied drinking rather than English as I was meant to at university, I now end up reading books about grammar and poetry, because it's that thing about maximising. Yes. I'm watching my kids, I've got a 15 and an 18-year-old daughter, who are all talking on various platforms all the time, WhatsApp and whatever else. And especially with teenage girls, the intensity of the relationships and who's in which group, and they're moving from one group to another. But in a way, I'm loving the fact that they're doing this all with words, with text, and they're just narrowing it down, refining it, and just nailing that topic or that person accurately. Yeah. Whereas most of our communication in business is very flaccid, very bloated. You know, yeah.
So what are the benefits back for an organisation if they take those first steps, they cross that bridge, if you like? What benefits start to accrue?
Reduction in that amount of bloat, in the sense that you know better. Well, firstly, a lot of the senior people like the fact that for the first time they get to see their organisation. If you have a lively internal network where people are talking about work, it's very often the first time they've actually seen what's going on and seen it in real time, as it were.
Equally customers, I guess.
Yeah, well,
To see
totally.
what
That
customers think
transparency,
about it.
and the transparency is part of the challenge. That a lot of them are uncomfortable with that level of transparency, either with their staff or. But back to the benefits. I mean, it's the fact that you can know what to do faster. You can work out what's happening around you faster. You can work out what to do faster, and you have more access to distributed networks of smart people who can help you to do it. And all of those seem like the core activities of management.
It's true. So would you say that smaller, younger organisations are moving faster than bigger, more established, more bloated organisations? Or is it really that some get it and some simply don't?
More of the latter. And interesting you use the phrase younger, because I think in terms of individuals, the age thing is a bit of a red herring. Because let's face it, we're both kind of silver surfers ourselves. And there are many youngsters who are quite cautious in the use of this stuff, or at least if they do it socially, they don't understand how to do it at work. So the slightly misplaced faith in Gen Y coming in and disrupting the workforce hasn't happened.
Not at all.
And I think even some smaller organisations, I find it surprising how conventional they are. It's almost like we don't have language or ways of describing the potential. You know, Zappos had a go with holacracy and this whole thing of getting rid of managers, but that was way too early.
Yeah,
and
also 20% of their staff.
Oh, exactly. You know, we're not ready yet. You know, and one of the worries I have is that we have older ways of doing things that are crumbling under the strain faster than we're working out what we're replacing them with. And we can feel our way into it. We're sort of beginning to understand, just those of us who spent so much time online, you understand how the networks work and the way of systemically viewing an organisation. But how that then manifests itself as practices and processes that people can adopt, if ever, is questionable.
Yeah. So someone's listening to this and you've excited their interest. Where would they start? What would you say to them? These are the first two critical steps you make, so you don't do a kind of Zappos and leap in too early and end up causing more trouble than success.
Lurk. Lurk and get your hands dirty, in the sense that just yesterday I was working with some executives who are still very hands-off with it all, and they're sort of trying to understand in a kind of abstract way what I'm talking about. But I was saying to them, just get out there, get out on the internet, get on your internal networks, watch, see what's working, see what isn't. Just begin to understand the rhythms of how people are communicating, who's adding value, who's not, and why. And then once you've got a bit of confidence around how it works, start to engage. And it's that trial and error thing of putting an idea out, seeing what comes back, refining it and pushing it back out again. And it's that ebb and flow. You know, you'll remember maybe David Weinberger once called it writing ourselves into existence. Yes. That doesn't happen until you actually start and get your hands on it.
It's all true. So what not to do? Don't go out and buy Jive or buy a bit of software and say, oh, job done.
But of course people do that because it's a displacement activity. Well, it's what they're used to. They're used to running big projects. And if you're running a big project, you can get busy doing all the stuff you've always done, which avoids you facing the existential angst of saying what you think in public and writing.
It's all true. So, future, are you optimistic or are you pessimistic?
Depends which side of the bed I get out of. I mean, I am an unashamed clue-trained missionary. I mean, I think going back to some of the original ideas of 15, 20 years ago of the internet and the optimism that we had, it's a bit bruised, it's a bit battered. But what keeps me optimistic is the fact that I still think we're at the very beginning of a longer journey than most people assume. So I think we're talking decades, 20, 30, 40 years before we really understand the consequences of what we're doing. And a bit like the printing press, you know, that took a century before the Enlightenment or whatever, more than that. So I think we're on that scale of a journey and we're at the relatively early stages of it. But I get very frustrated because so many people still say, well, I don't do technology, or we have people who do that, or whatever. And I'm thinking, no, come on, we need you to get in there and have a go.
Yeah. So even though they're if you like, that people are saying the same things as they said the day you left the BBC, there's more evidence out there of a seismic shift. Keeps you
I think
going,
so,
right?
yes. Yes, I haven't given up yet.
Good. On that happy note, EUAN Semple, thank you very much for talking to me.
Thanks, Nigel.